de transformación cultural. Bienvenida, Riane Eisler, gracias por su legado y gracias por estar con nosotros y sobre todo porque su legado nos va a seguir iluminando a muchas más generaciones por delante. Adelante, muchas gracias.
Gracias. Thank you, Denma. As you know, our topic is Foundations for Partnership Public Policies. But first, I would like to start on a personal note, because as those of you familiar with my work know, I have a great deal of passion for positive policy and social change. And that passion is deeply rooted in my childhood experiences as a child refugee from Nazi Europe with my parents. Which in terms of the new conceptual framework that I've introduced was a massive regression to a rigid domination system. Now, that trauma led me to questions that I'm sure many of you have asked at some point in your lives. When we humans have such an enormous capacity for consciousness, for caring, for creativity, why has there been so much insensitivity, cruelty, and destructiveness? Is this inevitable, or are there alternatives? And these questions eventually led to my multidisciplinary, cross-cultural whole systems research, which focuses not only on deconstruction, but on reconstruction. And specifically, it focuses on identifying the core components of societies that support our positive human capacities and on how we can build these kinds of societies. Now, my whole systems approach, and could you switch, please? Oh, I see, they're all there. Okay, we're going to go to la escala social de dominación y colaboración. All right. So my whole new systems approach identified two social configurations. And these are configurations that go beyond conventional social categories that we're all used to, like right, left, religious, secular, Eastern, Western, and so forth. The domination social configuration and the partnership social configuration. And what this lens, this new lens of the partnership domination social scale reveals is the relationship between our intimate childhood and gender relations on the one hand, and politics and economics on the other, and of course, education, media, etc. And it shows that we have to look at the whole picture, the whole system, if we are to build a society that is more peaceful, sustainable, and equitable. Now, for example, using this new lens, we can see that the progressive social movements of modern times have all challenged the same thing, a tradition of domination. The Enlightenment in the 17th century challenged the so-called divine right of kings to rule over their subjects. The feminist movement challenged the, again, so-called divinely ordained right of men to rule over women and children. The abolitionist, civil rights, Black rights movement, Black Rights Matter movements challenge the, again, so-called divinely ordained right of a, quote, superior race to rule over, quote, inferior ones, all the way to the environmental movement, challenging our once idealized conquest and domination of nature. But these movements focus primarily on dismantling the top of the domination pyramid, politics and economics as conventionally defined. And they paid far, far less attention to four interconnected foundations of either domination or partnership systems. The first cornerstone foundation is childhood, because we know that from neuroscience that what children experience and observe, especially in their first 5 years, shapes nothing less than the architecture of our brains. And with this, how we think, how we feel, how we act, including how we vote. The second cornerstone, again, is one that we are not used to thinking of as a core social issue, is gender. Consider that ranking the male form of our species over the female form. What does it tell us? What does it tell a child? It is a template for equating difference with superiority or inferiority, dominating or being dominated, being served or serving, and hence it's a template for all in-group versus out-group prejudices and rankings, be it racism, anti-Semitism, and so forth. The third cornerstone is economics, but economics that goes beyond both capitalism and socialism, because consider that current economic systems, both capitalist and socialist, fail to properly value and reward the most fundamental human work, the work of caring for people and for nature. And the fourth cornerstone, and they're all interconnected, is story and language. Consider that many of the stories we are told today that are our heritage from more rigid domination times present violence, domination as normal and inevitable. So it is on these foundations, these domination foundations in childhood, gender, economics, and story language, that domination systems of strongman rule and violence have kept rebuilding themselves in regression after regression. For example, Putin, a strong man ruler who launched his barbaric invasion of Ukraine, he also in 2017 radically reduced the penalty, the legal penalty for family violence. So it is today substantially less in Russia than for hurting or killing a stranger. Why? Because of the link between an authoritarian and male-dominated punitive family and an authoritarian male-dominated violent state. Nothing to do with women and men. We're talking about stereotypes now. And this connection is also visible through the partnership domination biocultural lens in other contemporary regressions to domination, whether Nazi Germany, I was born into that massive regression, which is a Western secular society, religious societies like the Taliban, ISIS, Khomeini's Iran, Eastern societies. In all of these, think about it, the subordination of women in a male-dominated punitive family is a top priority. There's a reason for this. Now, progressive public policy, education, and media must also recognize and also educate others to recognize this connection if we are to build the foundations for a better world. We must educate people to move to a caring economics of partnerism, where the so-called women's work of caring for people starting at birth and the work of caring for our natural life support systems is truly valued and properly rewarded. And for this, we need new metrics, new measures that show this value instead of the current GNP, GDP, which include as productive activities, actually activities that harm and even take life. For example, selling cigarettes and the resulting medical costs, resulting funeral costs, they all make GDP go up. And a stand of trees, which we need to breathe, it's only included in GDP and GNP if it's dead, if it's a log. So at the Center for Partnership Systems, we are developing this metric, the Social Wealth Index, so that policymakers in both business, in government, in education, in media, have the information they need to accelerate the shift from domination to partnership systems. And the good news is that we have models of partnership-oriented societies, because we know today from archaeology, from mythology, from DNA studies even, that for millennia, we humans lived in societies that orient more to domination, to partnership than to domination. And evidence is detailed in my books, especially in The Chalice and the Blade. Now, we also know that we can create the tools we need to support policies that can move us from domination to partnership systems. And these tools include: 1, changing how we measure economic health; 2, demonstrating that supporting care work can cut through cycles of poverty; 3, implementing a cohesive family policy where care work, still done for free, primarily by women in families, is rewarded, such as affordable and well-paid, high-quality early child care, generous paid parental leave, early childhood education, etc. 4, sharing evidence that investing in caring for people and nature is good for business and society. And 5, and this is vital, recognizing that economic systems are affected by and in turn affect the larger social system. Now, education and media have a major role and responsibility to accelerate this shift to a more equitable, less violent, more sustainable partnership future. I thank you.
Gracias, profesora Eisler, por sus palabras, por su precisión.